should listen closely. When darkness wraps the world and dreams begin to stir, you've arrived at the right place. Welcome to Between Dreams and Shadows, the sanctuary of stories that live between sleep and the unknown. Here, every tale is more than a story. It's a portal to hidden worlds, forgotten secrets, whispers from beyond, and shadows that speak as your eyes begin to close. If you're drawn to mysteries, haunting legends, and stories that send shivers down your spine, this channel is your new nighttime ritual. Before we begin, I invite you to become part of this growing nightbound community. Subscribe now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a tale. New stories drop regularly, always under the veil of night. Like this video if you enjoy that chill before sleep. It helps this channel grow and lets me bring you deeper, darker stories. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had a strange dream or felt something watching in the dark? Your experience might inspire the next tale now. Take a deep breath, turn off the lights, leave the world behind, and get ready to drift between dreams and shadows. Setting the atmosphere the first time I noticed it, I told myself it was just the wind. That's how these things start. Rational explanations to cover irrational feelings. My name is Riley, and I live alone in a small, creaky house inherited from a grandmother I barely remember. It sits on the edge of a forest where the trees bend slightly, always as if listening. It's quiet here, too quiet sometimes, the kind of silence that feels loaded, pregnant with something unseen. At night, the silence deepens. It's not just an absence of sound, it's a presence of stillness. I never used to mind it until last month. That's when the nightmares began. They weren't particularly grotesque at first, just ... unsettling. I'd dream of standing in my hallway, staring at a shadow that never moved. I couldn't see who or what it was. I could only feel it, like heat from a stove I couldn't shut off. I would wake drenched in sweat, throat dry, eyes wide open, but afraid to look anywhere but the ceiling. And always, as I blinked the dream away, the house would feel different, as though it had been watching me while I slept. One night I got up to get water. As I passed the hallway, the very same one from my dream's eyes stopped. I don't know why. Something in me screamed not to look, so I didn't. I just kept walking, the cold glass in my hand, trembling as I returned to bed. But something was there. I knew it. Not in the way we know facts, but in the way animals sense a predator just beyond the brush. And from that night on, I started hearing ... things, small things. At first, the click of a doorknob turning ever so slightly, the creak of a floorboard that no one had stepped on, the subtle rustle of air shifting where it shouldn't. I began to wonder, was something in the house with me? Or worse, ... was it in me? My dreams grew darker. I'd wake up with the sound of whispering in my ears, fading just as quickly as consciousness returned. And every night, no matter how I arranged the furniture, the shadows in my room stretched toward my bed like reaching fingers. A friend once told me, "It's all in your head, Riley." I wanted to believe that, but lately, I'm starting to think the nightmares are listening, and not just listening, answering. The first signs of disturbance, it was a Tuesday night when I first saw it happen, something that couldn't be easily dismissed. I was folding laundry in my bedroom when I noticed the closet door had opened slightly, just a few inches, enough to show blackness where there should have been coats. I stood there, unmoving, eyes locked on that narrow slit of shadow. I didn't hear it open. It had been shut tight only minutes ago. I told myself it might have been the breeze from the hallway window. Maybe the latch was loose, maybe gravity. But then the edge of a shirt hanging inside swayed ever so gently, as if a breath had passed over it, a breath that wasn't mine. From that moment on, the boundaries between dream and waking began to fray. By day, the house seemed normal still, quiet, maybe even comforting. But at night, it took on a new shape. My home no longer felt like mine. I started noticing things just slightly out of place. A kitchen chair pulled back just enough to suggest someone had been sitting there. A picture on the wall tilted at an unfamiliar angle. One of my old notebooks, the one I hadn't touched in years, found open to a blank page. A single line etched into it. "Are you awake yet?" My breath caught when I saw it. The handwriting wasn't mine. I stared at the page, pulse hammering, waiting for it to make sense. But it never did. And then came the mirrors. I don't remember moving them, but every morning, I'd find my bedroom mirror angled differently, turned slightly toward the bed. One night, I covered it with a bedsheet, weighed it down with books. The next morning, the sheet was on the floor, and the mirror, still facing the bed. There was no physical proof, nothing I could show anyone, just a steady stream of tiny, precise violations, each one designed not to shock, but to doubt, to make me question whether I was awake or still dreaming. The shadows weren't just darker at night anymore. They felt heavier, more intentional. They didn't just move with the moonlight. They seemed to lean toward me when I wasn't looking. I tried sleeping with the lights on. That helped for a while. But eventually, even light started to feel wrong. Dim, untrustworthy. It didn't chase the shadows away, only made them hide better. I told myself again. Stress. Maybe I was sleepwalking. Maybe I was dreaming while awake. But the next night, I found my bedroom window open, and on the floor, just beneath it, were two muddy footprints, bare, human, and not mine. The sound that shouldn't exist at first. It was just static, like a detuned radio buried somewhere deep within the walls. Faint, almost imperceptible. It buzzed at the edge of my awareness, never loud enough to locate, but always present, especially at night. Then it changed. The static began to pulse, in and out, almost rhythmic, like breathing, or worse, listening. I thought it might be tinnitus, or some weird trick of the house settling, but then came the voices, not full words, not at first, just fragmented sounds like distant murmuring, as though someone were speaking behind a door at the end of a long hallway. No matter where I stood in the house, it always seemed to come from just out of reach. One night, as I lay in bed holding my breath to catch it clearly, I heard something I couldn't ignore. A single word, my name, whispered in a voice that was undeniably mine. Riley. The sound wasn't muffled or dreamlike. It was clear, precise, whispered directly into my ear. But I was alone. I sat upright so fast, my neck cracked. The room was empty. Nothing stirred. But the air felt violated, like something had just slipped past me. I tried recording the nights after that. I set up my phone on my nightstand with a sleep monitor, something that triggers recording when noise is detected. I reviewed the first few nights and found nothing but the occasional rustle of sheets. But on the fourth night, there was something. At exactly 3:17 a.m., a soft clicking noise. Then breathing. Then "Why don't you answer?" The voice was low, garbled, yet it used my voice, not an imitation. It was like someone had taken a recording of me and bent it, warped it, twisted it into something hollow and cold. I deleted the file immediately, shaking. But the moment I hit delete, I regretted it, because now I didn't know if I imagined it, and I couldn't prove it had been real. That night, the sound returned, but not in the recording, in my ears. This time, it didn't whisper from across the room. It came from under the bed. I sat frozen for over an hour, listening as the same phrase repeated, softer and softer. "You're finally listening." And then a giggle. High, childlike, familiar. When I finally got up the courage to look beneath the bed, there was nothing there, of course. But that same night, I woke to find my pillow on the floor, propped up perfectly beside the closet door, as if something had been lying there, watching. The presence without a face by now. I'd stopped pretending it was all in my head. There was something in the house with me. Something I couldn't see but could feel. Like the air thickening just before a storm. or the sensation of being watched in a darkened room. It was always strongest in the moments between sleep and waking. That soft veil between dreams and consciousness. That's where it lived, the presence. Didn't knock, didn't call, didn't scream. It simply existed, quiet, patient, constant. I started keeping every light on at night, but even that began to feel useless. The shadows didn't need darkness anymore. I'd watch, heart pounding, as objects shifted by degrees. An empty mug on the table would inch toward the edge. A book's pages would flutter, though the windows were shut. My reflection in the bathroom mirror began to behave strangely. Not dramatically, but just enough to not follow me exactly. A delay in the blink. A fraction of a second too slow when I tilted my head. It wasn't obvious unless you were looking for it, but I was looking for it now. Always. The worst part wasn't the physical disturbances, it was the sense of anticipation they carried. Like whatever this wasn't finished yet. It was preparing something. One night, I awoke with the crushing weight of a presence in the room. Not a sound, not a movement, just a force. The air pressed against my chest. My limbs were numb. My mouth refused to open. My body felt noticed, and I swear I saw it. Not with my eyes, but in the space just beyond sight. Like when you almost remember a dream. It was tall. Not impossibly tall, human tall, but wrong. Its outline flickered like old film. I couldn't see its face. Or maybe it didn't have one. But it looked back at me. It knew me. That night, I couldn't sleep again. But as I lay awake, too afraid to close my eyes, I heard soft scraping in the hallway, like bare feet dragging slowly along the wooden floor. I locked the door. I blocked it with a chair. I sat in the corner, clutching a flashlight that flickered constantly. No matter how many new batteries I tried, at dawn, I found long dark smudges on the inside of my bedroom door. 5 of them, like the marks of fingers pressed lightly against the wood. Each one ending in a deep indentation, as if nails had begun to push through. And in the kitchen, my wall calendar had been torn down. A single note scrawled where it had hung. Stop pretending you don't see me. It wasn't a threat, it was a fact. The unspoken warning that disturbances no longer felt random. There was an order to the madness, a pattern I hadn't noticed at first. They weren't escalating in chaos. They were progressing in precision. Each event felt like a puzzle piece deliberately placed. Every whisper, every shadow, every movement wasn't just to scare me, was to communicate. I began documenting everything. Times, locations, the feeling I had just before something occurred. That's when I noticed the time, 3:17 a.m., every night, without fail. That was the moment the air would shift, the moment the sound would start, the moment the dreams would end and it would come. I started calling it the shift, and during the shift, my mind would get loud. Thoughts I hadn't invited, memories I didn't recognize, phrases repeating in my own voice. You shouldn't have ignored the dreams. They weren't dreams. They were doors. I didn't understand it till the night I dreamt of the attic. I had never been up there, never needed to. It was just a crawl space above the second floor, sealed with an old wooden hatch I never bothered to check. But in the dream, I was pulled toward it. The hallway stretched unnaturally long. The ceiling bulged as though something inside was pushing out. When I reached the hatch, it was already open, and from the darkness above came a whisper. You invited me here. I awoke gasping, the sheets soaked through. Heartbeat rapid, driven by something I didn't fully comprehend, compulsion, or fear, or maybe both. I climbed the creaking ladder to the attic for the first time since I'd moved in. There was dust, cobwebs, rotting wood, but no sign of anything unnatural, until I found it. A single envelope nailed to the back wall, aged and yellowed. My name on the front, in my handwriting. Inside was a photograph, blurry, low light, clearly taken inside my bedroom. I was sleeping in it. lying on my side, facing away from the camera. But in the foreground, just beside the edge of the frame, a hand, gray, long, motionless, watching dot on the back of the photo, a single line. This is the last warning. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid, but because I couldn't stop wondering. A warning of what? What happens after the last warning? The moment of truth. The next few nights blurred together like smeared ink on a wet page. I barely slept. When I did, it wasn't rest, it was descent. The dreams became deeper, stranger, and every time I woke up, I had the same sensation, that something was waiting for me to understand. It no longer felt like I was being haunted. It felt like I was being chosen. That shift at 3:17 a.m. began pulling at the world itself. Walls groaned, like they were breathing. The lights dimmed. Even new bulbs faded in that hour. Clocks stopped ticking, but only between 3:16 and 3:18. Time paused. One night, exhausted beyond reason, I sat in the living room with every light on, trying to stay awake. I'd started talking aloud to the presence, as if acknowledging it might restore some control. "What do you want?" No answer, only silence. But that night, when the shift came, I didn't feel alone anymore. I knew where it was, behind me. I didn't turn around, not right away. Instead, I listened. There was no breath, no footsteps, just a vibration in my bones, like a tuning fork had been struck inside my skull. I felt a hand press gently on my shoulder. Not cold, not violent, inviting, and I understood. This was not about fear, it was about decision. It had been testing me, watching how far I'd follow the trail, how willing I was to question what was real. So I made a choice. I turned around. There was no creature, no demon, no ghostly figure, just the hallway behind me, longer than it should have been. Warped, stretching into a soft darkness that shimmered like water, and in the middle of that hall was a door. I had never seen it before. It didn't match the house. It was old, much older, made of gray wood and rusted hinges. No handle, only a single phrase carved into its surface. "You're ready now?" I approached it with trembling legs. Each step met with the deepening pulse of silence. When I placed my hand against the door, it was warm, alive. I pressed gently. It opened not inward, but around me, like the house itself folded in half, and beyond it, not a room, a mirror. Not just any mirror. That mirror, the one from my room. Except this time, it didn't reflect me. It showed an empty house, mine, but I wasn't in it. The mirror, me, had vanished, and something else had taken its place. The inevitability of darkness the next morning. I didn't wake up in bed. I woke up standing facing the mirror. My hands were cold, pressed against the glass. My reflection blinked back, but not in sync, not quite. It was still me, but the eyes, they didn't feel like mine anymore. They lingered. They watched. When I stepped back, the reflection didn't move. It stayed where it was, hands still on the mirror, staring straight ahead. I ran, out of the room, down the hallway. But every mirror I passed, every reflective surface showed the same image. Me, unmoving, trapped inside, watching me run. I tried covering them, tearing them off the walls. But even in the blankness, I could feel it, my other self tracing my every movement from behind the veil. The world outside didn't feel the same anymore. Cars moved, birds sang, people talked, but everything was slightly off. Like I was a half-second too late for reality, like I'd slipped into a place built to imitate my world, not contain it. And every night, the shift returned. 3:17 a.m., without fail. Only now, there were no whispers, no laughter, no shadows crawling across the floor. Just a single sound knocking. 3 knocks, always 3. From inside the mirror, not pounding, not frantic, just patient. I began locking the bedroom door, even though I knew it meant nothing. I pushed the dresser against it, slept with the lights on, flashlight in hand, mirrors draped in sheets, but the knocking never stopped. One night, I awoke to find all the covers stripped from my bed, every mirror uncovered, the dresser no longer blocking the door, and on the ceiling, directly above where I slept, handprints, black, streaked downward, as if something had been watching, hanging upside down, waiting. I screamed, but my voice didn't sound right. It echoed strangely, like it had to travel through something else before reaching my ears. And then I realized I wasn't alone. In the corner of the room, hunched in shadow, was a shape, humanoid, still silent, its face turned toward me, but completely blank. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin stretched too tightly over a skull that seemed far too long. But somehow, I knew it was me, or what I was becoming. I backed away, heart hammering, whispering no over and over, like a prayer. But the shape didn't move, didn't speak. It only tilted its head and smiled without a mouth. And I understood, finally, this thing didn't come from outside. It didn't invade. It had always been here, waiting for the moment I'd stop pretending, the moment I'd believe. The fear that stirs. I haven't looked in a mirror in weeks. Every one of them is covered now, every screen turned face down, every reflective surface dulled or shattered, because every time I catch a glimpse even by accident I see something I shouldn't. Not a figure, not a movement, but an absence, a hole in the reflection where I should be. Whatever version of me stared back before, it's gone now, and I don't know what's taken its place, but I feel it when I sleep. I feel it when I walk past dark windows at night, when I close my eyes in the shower and imagine the fog clearing from the mirror. It's always waiting, and the knocking, it never stopped. 3 times. Every single night at 3:17 a.m., no longer from the mirror but from inside my head, as if whatever I let in that night never truly left. There's no more dream, no waking, just a constant loop of almost asleep, almost sane, almost safe, but never quite. And now, it's not just my reflection behaving strangely. People I pass on the street glance at me like they recognize something they shouldn't, like they're trying to place a face they saw in a dream or a nightmare. My voice sounds foreign on recordings. My laughter comes out wrong. I find notes in my handwriting that I don't remember writing. Short cryptic things like, "He's not you anymore. The door is still open. Stop feeding it." And worst of all, my dreams are quiet now. Not peaceful, just silent. As if whatever used to watch me from the dark is now asleep inside me, waiting to wake. Some nights I wonder if I ever left that hallway. If the moment I touched the door, I stepped into something I can't return from. Another place. But another version of myself. A version I didn't realize existed. One that knew the rules of fear better than I did. One that could wait forever. And now, even in a crowded room, I feel it, a thread stretching out behind me, tethered to a place just behind the mirror. Tense, invisible, unbreakable. Every night, I lie in bed, eyes wide open, listening, and when the knock finally comes, I whisper one thing back into the dark. I'm still here, but I don't think it knocks because it's trying to get in anymore. I think it's knocking to remind me. ... It already has. Could you sleep after hearing this? What do you think really happened behind the mirror, and who do you think came back?